Join me today as we talk about Furiosa, the Mad Max Fury Road prequel. Welcome to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to be talking about Furiosa, which, for those of you who don't know, is a prequel to the movie Mad Max Fury Road. So, saw the movie last week. Yeah, last weekend, as of this recording. Probably going to be a couple days before I get this up there. So if you saw the podcast, if I have it up before I have this video up, then I talked a little bit about it there. Didn't say a whole lot, and I'm going to try to talk about all the non-spoilery stuff first. Although, given that it's a prequel, if you saw Fury Road, you probably know what's going to happen. So, okay. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that this movie has not been overly successful at the box office, as near as I can tell. And I've seen a lot of videos talking about why. And a topic I tried to talk a little bit about in the podcast. We're going to see what survives the editing on that one. And there's a couple different takes on it. There's the nuanced take that people have misread the trailers and got the vibe that it's what's known as a girl boss movie. Or people just aren't interested in returning to the theaters yet, if ever. Or it's a case of it's a prequel in a series called Mad Max that doesn't feature Mad Max, or some combination of the three. Because overall the movie is entertaining. I'm glad I saw it in a theater, and there's a slim possibility I'll end up seeing it a second time. Similar to Fury Road, it's definitely it's not quite the spectacle that Fury Road was. I will say that, but the action is pretty top notch. So, you know, you have the nuanced take, which is it's one of those things, and then you have the grievance take of, oh, it's stupidly woke and it's a girl boss movie. And it's like, if you watch the movie, you know that's not the case. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, usually I'm railing against people in Hollywood who lean left politically, and it's very blatantly obvious, and that in and of itself isn't a problem, but it bleeds through into their work, and people are getting tired of it. But there's also the other side of the equation. Now, mind you, I think this is a tiny fraction, and ultimately is only good for like internet drama, because these people aren't out making movies. You know, they're not the ones destroying movie franchises. They're the ones who are complaining about it, but usually for the wrong reason. And they just instantly, oh, there's a woman that's the main character. Clearly it has to be a woke movie. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, oh, she's probably Mary Sue. It's like, well, no, she's not. I mean, she loses her goddamn arm. Like, she struggles through most of the movie. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I'm not going to go down that road, because I talk about it way too much on the podcast as it is, and I'm seriously trying to stop. It's just that half the time that's the only thing there is to talk about. So anyway, the movie itself, like I said, the action I think is very good. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy did a decent job. Not really much to say because she didn't say a lot, but you know, it is a little bit into the movie before she shows up, because you see a younger still version before she takes over. And let's see, non-spoiler here. So Chris Hemsworth is great as the main villain. There's some hints that there's a deeper character there, someone that has just well, I'll talk about that a little bit more in the spoiler section. But he is a little different from the typical Mad Max villain. He is over the top, like all the Mad Max villains are. And we do get to see something I don't really think we've seen in the other movies, which is multiple Mad Max villains fighting it out. So, there's that. We are introduced to some new characters, and at least one of whom I'm pretty sure survives. So I have no idea why they're not in Fury Road, for reasons I'll explain at the end of this in the spoiler section. But yeah, overall I thought the movie was worthwhile. It's worth a watch if you like the Mad Max movies. The action's good, the music's good, sound effects are good. There's a little more use of CGI, or a little more obvious use of CGI in this one as opposed to Fury Road. That would be my only real complaint. And the timeline of the Mad Max movies is getting a little confusing at this point. So, and I'll elaborate a little bit on that in the spoilers, but I'm beginning to think that these movies don't take place in the order that we think they take place in. So, and I'll kind of explain that. Sorry for the interruption here. As I got to the end of the video, I realized that I was about to say something that I meant to say before I got to the spoiler part. If you have not seen Fury Road, do not stick around for the credits in this movie, because the credits are an assortment of clips, I believe in sequence, of Fury Road. So it's just kind of showing you what's going to happen. So if you somehow are watching Furiosa and haven't seen Fury Road, do not watch the credits. There is no credits scene. It's just clips from Fury Road. So you're going to see a bunch of stuff that you should watch later on whenever you go and watch Fury Road, which you should definitely watch. It's excellent. So anyway, back to the review. That's most of what I can say before I really go into spoilers. You know what to expect. It's the Australian wasteland after the nuclear apocalypse. So you got a bunch of, bizarro vehicles, and mostly motorcycles this time. And kind of setting things up to explain why things are the way they are in Fury Road. The Fury Road in the movie, this isn't really a spoiler, apparently still has asphalt in the movie. So, I don't know, it's been a while since I watched Fury Road. I don't remember if they actually had, like, a road, because I thought they were just kind of driving through the desert. But anyway, it's all irrelevant. So, on to the spoilery section. So, we have the villains from Fury Road in this one, Immortan Joe, and the accountant guy, the big fat accountant guy, the guy that runs Bullet Town. I assume the accountant guy runs Gas Town, but he took over from whoever was running Gas Town, because Dementus, which is Chris Hemsworth's character, goes and kills that guy and takes over Gas Town. And it seems to be part of a long-term strategy to ultimately take over the Citadel, because he wants the water and the green and everything else. So he initially tries an assault, going in through the front door, and he probably has Immortan Joe's guys outnumbered, but all the war boys are up on like bridges and things way up above, and can't get to him down on the ground. And so Immortan Joe tells them to pick one, and so they pick one. Guy points one out, and the guy goes and gets a couple of those exploding, boomsticks they have, and jumps off and just dives down in the middle of all the other dudes, all of Chris Hemsworth dudes there, and just blows a bunch of them up. And then Immortan Joe's like, "They'll all die in my name." He's like, "Good luck." And they just start fighting each other, and real quickly Chris Hemsworth guys get hit up pretty good, so they leave. And then they ultimately figure out a way to get into Gastown and take it over. And they work out a deal with Immortan Joe where, they'll keep the supplies, will keep coming. And that's where Immortan Joe comes across Furiosa, because Dementus has her there with him. Because he captured her towards the very beginning of the movie. And, his guys captured her, and they're taking her to Dementus to prove that the place they found her had, trees and water and everything else. The green place. And she refuses to tell Dementus where she's from, won't even point out a direction or anything. And he kills her mother right in front of her. Never does find the green place. When they come across one of Immortan Joe's guys, and he describes the Citadel, and so they're like, well, there's another place of plenty. So they go there, and that's when they attack, and it doesn't work out. So Furiosa, Immortan Joe wants Furiosa as part of the deal because she's, healthy and everything, and he's like, well, when you're older, you can be one of my brides. And then Rictus comes and steals her from the bride vault, and the doctor guy that's with Immortan Joe, he originally is with Chris Hemsworth's character, so he's also like part of the deal. And so Rictus grabs her. The implication that I got was that he planned on sleeping with her, and that's kind of, that one was definitely a little spectacular, because she's not even being played by Anya Taylor-Joy at that point. She's very young. So she ends up escaping, and then she joins up with the guy who is the Praetorian at that point, who I think his name was Lucky Jack, and he's the one who's been doing most of the runs on the Fury Road and everything. And he realizes that she was planning on trying to escape, and so he's like, well, I'll train you, and you help me, I'll train you, and I'll get you all the stuff you need to go, and whenever you're ready, just go. And I think eventually the idea is he plans on going with her to the green place. So you got that, so you got a few runs in there, and then Dementus starts screwing with things, and the two of them think it's their time, and they're going to make a run for it, but Dementus does his stuff, and everything just kind of all comes to a head in a big battle there towards the end. And it ends kind of anticlimactically. Dementus doesn't die in some big battle. It ultimately comes down to like a few of his guys and Furiosa, and she kills all of them, captures him, and he basically explains that she's really no different than him, that she's willing to do all these things for revenge. And he's like, I had a family too once, I lost them, and now the only thing that satisfies me is violence. And he's telling her, it gets to the point where you just have to have more and more, and finally there's no end to it. And he's like, you're just like me, this is what you're going to lead to. And he's like, so go ahead, do it, take me out. He's like, there's no point in torturing me, I'm not going to apologize, and I've got a hellacious threshold for pain, so, do what you got to do. And so it's implied that she just shoots him, and there's a voiceover talking about, there's rumors about what she did, about how, she tortured him to death and all this, that, and the other. And then you see the guy telling the story is like, well, she told me one time that he's there in the Citadel, and he's like staked out somewhere, and she planted a tree that's growing up through his midsection, and he's still alive. So, maybe. Then, like I said, you see how she loses her arm, it gets crushed, and then, she builds the mechanical arm to, she took it off something else, kind of modified it. And then it kind of ends with her, like, getting the brides and loading them up onto the war rig right after we see the Mad Max cameo which is essentially the scene from the beginning of Fury Road where he's standing up on the ledge watching stuff happen down below. So the end of the movie is basically at the start of Fury Road. And yeah, so there's like really compressed timetable in there somewhere, or there's a huge jump to that point. Like I said, everyone acted their parts well, and there's not a lot more to say about the plot, because it's essentially revenge against Dementus while trying to also escape from Immortan Joe and try to get back to the Green Place. With the short cameo from Max, all the villains from Fury Road. You see that Immortan Joe has another son, and he's mentioned, and he's in the movie, but he doesn't die at the end, unless I missed something. So, given that this movie ends where Fury Road begins, I don't know where the hell this guy was. I did read an article that speculated that Bartertown got turned into Gastown, which, just for the record, if you happen to have read that article, it's total clickbait nonsense. There is no way that's possible. Even ignoring things like the geography's wrong and things like that, there's two major problems with that. Number one, as someone in the comments pointed out to that article, Bartertown had to be relatively close to Sydney, because the gyrocopter, well, not the gyrocopter pilot, it's the same actor, but it's a different character who also happens to have a machine that flies. The airplane guy, he couldn't have flown very far. We don't know how much gas he had. He had a full load. He had to be within probably a few hundred miles of Sydney. And Australia is gigantic, and it's very clear at the beginning of this movie that we're like smack dab in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Australia, not within a couple hundred miles of Sydney. So that's problem number one with that theory. Problem number two is Bartertown, they were powering everything with methane, okay, which came from the pig shit. So this isn't the BBC. I'm not going to somehow edit out the second part of that, and you're just going to hear pig. I saw it on TV recently, so I know that's what they do. The problem is, whenever you see Gastown, it's very clearly surrounded by tar and oil. It's refining oil into gasoline. It's not pig crap into methane and then somehow made into vehicle fuel. It's refining oil into gasoline. So, yeah, it is definitely not Bartertown. And like I said, Dementus, as you find out at the end, he's the only one of the villains we ever get any backstory for. We got no backstory for the Humongous, none for Toe Cutter, none for Immortan Joe. The only thing we knew about Anti-Entity is that she views herself as important because she survived the nuclear apocalypse, and that she was a nobody before that. So, the fact that we know that Dementus had a family, that he lost them, and that he's essentially just embraced violence and insanity to try to still feel something, sets him apart from the others. We've got a motivation, we've got a bit of a backstory, kind of a dark counterpart to Max, because Max had a family, they got killed in the first movie, and he's just like a burnout shell of a man, just trying to survive for who the hell knows what reason. So, yeah. Overall, I liked it. I think Fury Road is a little bit better movie, but Fury Road is damn near a masterpiece in action, so, unless everyone brought their A game, and here is more like their A- B+ game, but it's still really good in my opinion. If you like the action, there's not as much action, but it's pretty good action. Story's decent. You know where it's going because it's a prequel, but just kind of seeing some stuff, seeing some of the world building, actually seeing Gastown and Bullet Town instead of just referencing them. That was interesting. Seeing a couple of villains actually go head to head against each other was interesting. And Don't know what else to say. Oh, Chris Hemsworth again, like I mentioned, fantastic. Playing a crazed villain, like definitely something we should look into more in the future once his Thor days are over with. But overall, definitely worth a watch, especially if you like the other Mad Max movies. So yeah, overall, movie's definitely eminently watchable. I'd recommend seeing it in a theater. If you're on the fence, go watch it during a matinee. But it's pretty impressive visually and everything. So, good movie. I mean, I'd give Fury Road something like an 8.5 or 9 because, like I said, it's damn near perfect. So this is probably more like 6.5, 7. Entertaining, worth a watch. Definitely a movie. If I see it on TV later on, I'm sure I'll leave it on there and watch it. So check it out. Let me know down in the comments if you've seen it, if you plan on seeing it, if you don't plan on seeing it, and why. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It's YouTube, you know how this goes. But anyway, I don't have any kind of quip. I don't have any kind of Mad Max quip here. So see you folks at the theaters.